Right, George. We had some news over the last few days about Benjamin Šeško from
Who's that?
John Cross. He's this guy. We might be talking about him a little bit over the summer. That Benjamin Šeško apparently says yes to Arsenal transfer as Gunners line up £45 million deal. This is from John Cross, who is fairly reliable, hit and miss.
I think he's a bit of a DiMarzio for England. You know, like is DiMarzio's reliable for Italy and he's a bit hit and miss, then John Cross is reliable for Arsenal, but pretty hit and miss.
I think I would love, I think I said this on Twitter, you obviously have your kind of Fabrizios and your David Ornsteins, but I'd love someone, if you're watching this and you know like data science or something, make some kind of AI-powered, crowdsourced journo reliability thing. I would love that. But we all know we can go there and we can see what they got right, see what they got wrong, see when, stuff from 10 years ago, so, have they got more reliable over time? I think that'd be so cool.
What the part of the problem is? They're so subjective that it's good news that you want to hear is reliable for a lot of people in terms of the link logic.
So. And this is good news. So it's reliable.
100%. It's reliable.
But supposedly Benjamin Šeško has, not agreed personal terms, not anything yet, but there's some strong links to Benjamin Šeško. And
I do think it's probably along those lines, to be honest with you. Like when I hear like a journalist say that X has chosen Y club, I think, oh, you've agreed personal terms in essence. I think you could make that inference for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, either way, we want to talk about him. And we asked some questions out to you guys, listeners on X. You can follow us on X at thecannonpod. And we were going to go through them sort of individually, but basically the crux of the question, really what everyone's asking is, okay, nice player. And by the way, we're going to be doing some scouting on Benjamin Šeško. I should say this. If you want to watch us scout Benjamin Šeško, we've gone through all his best actions, goals, how he runs, how he fits into the team properly with footage. We obviously can't put that on YouTube. It's in the link. It's the top link in the description. You can go check that out. It's for patrons and YouTube members mainly, but you can also get it on a free trial. So do not accuse us of putting it behind a paywall. It is behind a paywall, but it's free. So go look at it. If you want to see us scout, go check that out there. But here, we're going to look at the tactics board, and we're basically going to ask, how does Benjamin Šeško fit in at Arsenal? Because understandably, when we're signing a 6'5" centre forward, and we already have a 6'4" centre forward who has already come out today, by the way, and had some quotes saying that he now sees himself as a centre forward, which I found interesting. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about that as well.
But not a real 9.
But not a real 9, which is interesting. How does he fit in? So I think should we jump straight to the tactics board?
Yes, let's do it.
Amazing, cool.
Wow.
So go for it.
The Cannon podcast is really upgrading, guys, when George V understands.
When George V can share his screen. It really is. We hit new levels.
The big thing that you've got to discuss with kind of this diamond midfield is I think this is the best way in order to fit in a Kai Havertz, because in Benjamin Šeško, you've got a 9 that is much more of a channel running 9. And so if we really want, we can throw our wingers out wide, because this is kind of how Mikel and Arteta likes to set up quite a bit. And so when we do kind of join in, I do believe that our left back will kind of form a little bit of a 2, typically speaking. And you're going to have this almost 5-man defense and 5-man attack. And this is how I'd like to think about kind of profiles, both in attacking and a defending sense. And you're going to find that Kai Havertz and Benjamin Šeško are going to have a beautiful interchange where Šeško is somebody that likes to overload out wide, drop in these zones, help to create an association both with his winger as well as his midfield. But one of the big things is they're going to be very closely paired together. And it'll be very much like what people describe as a little large relationship, but with a large relationship.
A modern day Jermaine Defoe and Peter Crouch.
Yeah. 100%.
Both big.
100%. And you know what? We're actually starting to see this quite a bit across the world, not just Haaland and De Bruyne, by the way, Haaland, Julian Alvarez. When you look at kind of Liverpool and turn to Darwin Nunez, the channel runner with maybe a Jota. And when those two play together, the thing is Šeško will drop deep. He'll probably be the physical backboard that Havertz will like to look off and kind of work off of, but then he's going to make the run in behind while Šeško will drop and probably peel out wide. And so you've got either two strikers attacking the box after this point, or you've got the winger that would like to come inside. And Šeško's perfectly happy to make the run outside and kind of.
Should we just name Šeško on there? Sorry, let's just name Šeško on that.
Yeah, let's name him.
So we're definitely sure that's Šeško. Lovely stuff. Oh, he's even put a capital. How exciting!
So typically with your left back, it could be Zinchenko. in here. They can operate in a two. Your Kai Havertz will be your left central midfield, but guys, he's not really a midfielder. And this is where it comes into the quotes about him being predominantly a 9, but not really a 9, because he's got tactical freedom to basically go wherever he wants. And so Kai Havertz can do still a lot of the Kai Havertz things. He can drop in deep. Šeško can fill in. Right. And, he can interchange on the right hand side, which he's done quite a bit with Saka. We can find times when Kai Havertz peels wide, we can have Saka come inside. There's a lot of flexibility that offers here, but by having another runner and somebody that's able to drop deep and is technical enough, by the way, to be a first reference, that is something that Šeško is going to offer this team, because he's.
What do we mean by first reference? Sorry, just for
so as a first reference, he's very technical in terms of being able to receive in midfield, and he's got brilliant feet for a big man. He's 6'5", but he dribbles like a 5'2". He's got
first reference, as in he could take the ball off the goalkeeper from a direct kick.
Absolutely. And because one of the big things that I think that we've looked at, by the way, I don't know if there's anybody that's watching our channel that can do these lovely statistics, but David Raya, by the way, one of the big predominant reasons we probably bought him was to be one of those big out balls to the big center forward, in the same way that he used Ivan Toney, right? I don't think we've seen that as much. In fact, I think every time we've gone long, the team has really settled for a second ball retrieval as opposed to being a first man target and the first reference, which actually goes to show you that Kai Havertz, despite him being tall, which is something I've always critiqued, he isn't the aerial reference that a lot of people make, in the Twitter sphere. And so Šeško can be. Šeško is somebody that's got that massive leap. The one issue, and I will say as a weakness, is that he does struggle to use his body. Anybody that watches Šeško will make the comment, which I've made in a previous video, he's 6'5" and doesn't know it yet. So he's got a willingness to make this run, to drop deep, to become an outlet. But in terms of him being sturdy enough to handle the contact, that's still something that he's inconsistent with. So I think what you'll find is Šeško will drop at times or be kind of that first outlet. Kai Havertz will be the one that would love to kind of either go in behind, and he won't necessarily take the first ball, but I would imagine your left back or your lateral shuttler, let's call them, in this diamond, depending on which side Šeško would like to overload, which just means the side he likes to cheat onto. That first knockdown will go here for Kai Havertz to make the run, and the pass will go out to Kai Havertz in that way. Now, Šeško will then work to peel in and around, and that dynamic is going to change, because let's just flip things and go on to the right. You're going to find this happen the same way on the right. So Kai Havertz will then cheat to the right. Šeško can drop in here. He can provide himself as an outlet for a David Raya long ball off to Martin Odegaard, who, by the way, on his strong foot, can feed the next pass. And you know what? We'll even do this because I'm feeling tactico-y. That's the kind of pass that you're looking from a Martin Odegaard. And Kai Havertz is somebody that has that intelligence to know when to peel, to know when to go. And he can't be somebody that's tied down to a particular position. And by the way, Šeško has that ability. He's got that ability to kind of offer himself as an option in the middle. He can also go out wide. We can make Saka come inside here. He's got that movement ability to be there.
Okay, so just a couple of questions there. Sorry, just a couple of questions then. So materially, how this improves us is beforehand, Havertz has been that reference, and there hasn't necessarily been that run it in behind in the same way. Am I correct in saying that? So if Šeško can be that reference, and then Havertz is the run it in behind, or it makes Saka be the runner in behind, that can help us. And we're not just doing it just to win the second ball. We can go almost direct and then direct again, if that makes sense. Is that fair to say?
I think that's fair to say. And, I think ultimately speaking, I think instead of a Šeško, like we've kind of had Kai Havertz and we've basically had Declan Rice prop up in here. And we've had perhaps a left back that's a little bit wider. And we've kind of had to almost have a Thomas Partey back here. And what you're noticing, this has been the setup primarily, and let's call it Kivior. Or your left back. I really don't care who it is. But typically, this is what Arsenal have been doing. And we've had a very isolated left-hand side because Kai Havertz will only cheat to the right. And essentially, you'll keep having the left wing operate here, but you'll have Declan Rice in these zones. This is what Arsenal last season have done. And, I think the issue with this, by the way, is not only do you have Ben White making less runs on the overlap, by the way, But with Kai Havertz only cheating here, look at the amount of people that you consistently will have in the final third. It's Declan Rice and the left wing. There's two people. If Declan Rice makes the run out here, the left wing, he can't make the run inside because who's got the space covered from a defensive out of possession point of view? So it's forced him to stay long. Even if Declan makes an underlapping run, which I've seen on Twitter as people saying, we just need an underlap, but it's not that simple. We need somebody, for example, if we had a left back that could make that run when Declan goes inside to push the left wing inside, then it makes sense. Then effectively you have the runs that a Šeško would do, but we haven't had that. And we don't have that type of left back. So it forces the left back deep. It forces the left wing wide. And it allows Declan sure to have that space. But guys, do we want Declan Rice making those runs? Or do we want a Kai Havertz making those runs? Where the big one is not Rice. And we've got Šeško, who's got a lot more movement, but also technical quality. My God, I'm really struggling with this. My keyboard cannot work.
Capital S.
Or do we want basically another final third reference that therefore we've now got two big men that can essentially be in the box, and one can attack back post, one can attack front post. And there's a lot more flexibility, in my opinion, going this way. We effectively add a player in the attack as opposed to last season when we've had to take one away.
Sure. So that sort of answers the dynamic of how Šeško and Havertz can kind of work together. I suppose I have two questions, really. Two or three, depending on how much we've got time for.
Yes.
Firstly, out of possession, Šeško, who would be in that? Would that drop Havertz into that second line and Šeško be in that front line, or is there a different option there? How will we approach that? Do you feel?
So I think that you're going to start to see something more of a.
Let's put us in our 4-4-2 block, mid block, and how you see maybe that sort of shaping out.
So a lot of people kind of talk about the traditional 4-4-2, and I would say this kind of, and we have Martin Odegaard, who actually steps up quite a bit, right? And he's the one that leads the press, and we nominally have something like this happen with our 4-4-2. We've got Saka all the way deep. I can put them in here, but no, I won't. That's a joke. That's a joke, people. It's a joke.
And a very nerdy joke, but a joke, yes.
Yes. But this is our typical 4-4-2 block, right? Now, one thing that you may have to get a little bit more accustomed to, by the way, is the idea of having a DM that can slot in between these zones. And we've seen it with kind of a midfielder. And what you'll have is, instead of your left back can cheat a little bit higher, this could be an option for Arsenal.
Would be Rice. With
sure. Yeah, we can even make it Rice. But, we've seen that role from John Stones. We've seen Man City do it. And it's really not that difficult. And the reason why, by the way, this iteration going from up here back is a little bit better than going from left back out wide is look at the distance covered. It's actually a lot from an out of possession standpoint. This is a much smaller distance to cover. And what it does effectively is it puts a lot more emphasis on that left back being a dual winner. And I'm going to ask you a question, mate, because it's something that we talked about on the channel. Who is that one left back that I've said could potentially play in central midfield?
You all laughed at me.
Yeah. Well, this is how you can potentially see an out of possession diamond work. This is one of the iterations of a diamond working, by the way, is when you've got kind of that DM slide in to be what they call a libero in very technical terms, but it's just somebody that likes to join the back line, having dropped out of the midfield line. And so that's one way that you can do it. If you don't want to be technical and you want to keep this the way it is, I think that you have your left back and all you do is you keep it as is. You ask your anchor to cheat to where he likes to cheat. And I think Martin Odegaard will
go in the second line.
Exactly. But I make this change on purpose. People are saying, why is Havertz not on the left? Well, I mean, Declan prefers, kind of the left-hand side naturally. And I think deeper, you've still got 2 6'5" people in the pivot. And if you want to ask me who can defend in the middle third more, Martin Odegaard or Kai Havertz, I'm still going to say Kai Havertz. I still think that Martin Odegaard will be the one that will lead the press. And by the way, Šeško's a brilliant presser. That's something that doesn't get talked about. He has massive repeat sprint ability. He's got incredible athleticism, and he's a very willing and able presser. So he's somebody that can press both your defender. He can do the looping, cheating run that Martin Odegaard does to basically inform kind of where the press is going to go as a trigger. It can block the left, and Martin can then supplement it by stepping up high. There's a lot of ways that Šeško works, but Šeško essentially has all of the benefits of Gabby Jesus in terms of his pressing willingness, his ability and sharpness in the turn, but also is 6'5", and in theory should be able to use that frame a bit more.
Okay, let's finish with this then. There's been a little bit of discussion about Šeško possibly playing on the left, as in off the left, but starting out there. Is that something you can see working sort of in possession?
No. So I'm going to keep him up top. And the reason why is I've talked a lot about him able to peel wide, right? And a lot of people might say, well, if he's peeling wide, why can't he operate on the left? When you're on the left, if you noticed, quite a bit more of that is receiving and touchline zones where your angles are limited and where you have to have quick decision making. And while Šeško has a brilliant ability in tight spaces, what he doesn't have is a brilliant ability to carry through the thirds or to actually be a mazy dribbler. He's not Alexander Isak. So that, I think, is the big difference. While he's probably a stud in terms of the way that he can overlap wide with his movement, he's not able to dribble wide with his movement as much. And I think right now, if you actually look at him, much of his dribbles operate, if he does receive in this zone, he can burst through the middle and carry, no problem. And in fact, I think that his acceleration is actually really poor in the first 5 yards, but he ends up having a brilliant top speed, almost as fast as Mbappe, when he is allowed to run with bigger distances. So he's got that running power, but he isn't somebody that I believe has the ball manipulation to escape wide zones. And Alexander Isak does. And that's going to be the big difference between Šeško and why I don't believe that he can be offered too much at left wing. If he does, I'll end on this, he will be a Mandzukic in the way that Mandzukic was used at, Juventus or, even at Bayern. He's kind of that left wing forward. The only way that you could use a left wing Šeško would be to attack him back post. And that's it. And actually to use him as an aerial reference for a long ball from a David Raya. That I can maybe see, but that's such a specific situation that it's not common.
Sure. Okay, well, it feels like we've covered a lot of bases here. Just want to make sure we have covered every single one. There are obviously iterations of this without a Havertz in the team, maybe with a Jesus, maybe with if we're going to make a left wing signing. Are there any other sort of iterations of? Obviously, we looked at the one where he plays with Havertz. Are there any other iterations where you see Šeško maybe adding something and a new dynamic?
Yeah, I think so. The whole idea with all of this, by the way, is you could also have a situation where Šeško operates as the full nine, and instead of kind of a Kai Havertz being maybe the one, let's just take him away. Let's say we wanted an Emil Smith-Rowe as an option. And I know people are going to say, like, why is he playing? Let's assume for a minute that we're facing a low block. And one thing that we would like to do is to maybe get our left wing inside. I think it needs another buy, but one thing that we can see, in my opinion, is we can see a situation where the left wing crops up, and we can have a little bit more of a classic back line. Oops, we're making an arrow. I don't want to do that. But one thing that I can see happen is in low block situations, we can have something like this occur. And so we're depending on wherever the ball side is. So let's say the ball is going to be on the left here. If we can recruit an overlapping left back in more traditional senses, instead of the Kai Havertz being in the team, that left wing, which let's call it Martinelli now, this is an opportunity for our team to use maybe more traditional left back zones. And we could even get, Ben White high. And we've got this more of a 2-3. This is a lot more attacking. This could be something when we're chasing a game. But this is something that I do see kind of in situations that we can definitely use. And we've got that midfield line, and you are defending with two here. This would be something that I think if the game was, a little bit stretched and, Arsenal are trying to look for a winner, you can employ this tactic and we can have, our fullbacks up wide. And this almost attacks with six in a sense, because instead of just, you've got your Kai Havertz-esque runner, which is Martinelli, and your second striker that can peel. So you've got that same attack in the box that we talked about earlier with the Kai Havertz, but instead you can have kind of an Emil Smith-Rowe operate in these zones that operates as a 10. You have your Declan Rice that will cheat here in case of an out of possession issue. And you can have your Martin Odegaard. And you still have Saka inside to receive with your kind of fullback out wide and Ben White. Now, this doesn't always have to happen. You can still have kind of Ben White cheat into your back three again, have Saka out wide, and have your Martin Odegaard, which is something that we've seen quite a bit. This is still something that you can see.
How is that different than what we could do with Havertz? What would Šeško bring to that Havertz wouldn't?
So essentially, the big thing is more so on the left back as opposed to it's about having. You can still make this a Kai Havertz, but I think a Martinelli has a little bit more potency coming off the left in terms of his ability to attack the back line, and so you're just looking for a different type of striker in that sense. But Šeško would cheat right a bit more. Whereas in the other iteration, Kai Havertz would be the one that would be cheating right. And it's just because of the angles that they prefer. We'll talk about this in the scouting video, but Šeško has a brilliant ability to open up out wide. And so I think he's somebody that actually finishes on his strong foot a lot better than he does in the right half space zones. And so this is actually an issue where I think if Kai Havertz is playing, who's cheating off the right as opposed to the left, you're going to find that Kai Havertz, it suits his angles a bit more because he sees the pitch better, but it forces Šeško into his more preferred finishing situation. I think here you're going to have Martinelli in his preferred finishing situation, and Šeško switched.
Sure. And if you wanted Saka inside, maybe you could do that with Havertz in a different way. Yeah,
absolutely. Okay. And it adds the left back. That's, I think, the key. Like, instead of basically having your left wing and Havertz and Šeško being your quote unquote, twin strikers, you're basically having your left wing inside, and you're asking yourself, can your left back perform a lot of the wide touchline roles? And that could be something that a lot of fans like to see.
Okay, we'll leave you there on YouTube. If you do want to come and check out George and I nerding out more over Šeško, you can do so. We'll be looking at all his clips and so on a popular scouting network that we can't talk about. And we'll be looking at his best actions, his dribbles, all sorts of stuff, but with clips that we obviously can't show on YouTube. So if you do want to check that out, you can check that out in the link below. See you there. Till next time. Peace.
Peace.